A good vach, Shavua Tov. How are you, my holy sisters and brothers? It's great to be with you on a Saturday night, making a SIYUM on Tractate Rosh Hashana. Let's light up the darkness. Make sure you have a l'chaim ready. We're going to get to it. And it's a relatively short page, this final page of Tractate Rosh Hashana. This is the 9th volume of the Talmud. We're doing page 35, and then we'll make a SIYUM. I think Nina will come in the office and join me. We'll say the Hadran, the blessings that we say after finishing a course, a tractate of study. Then we'll make a little celebration, and then we'll just read the first lines of the Mishna of our next tractate, Tractate Tanis. Who is with us as we gather to do some beautiful learning on a Saturday night? Sharon in New Jersey, Stephen in New Hampshire, Melissa in Great Neck, Bill in Missouri, Paul in the Great Northwest, Patrice in Utah, Allison in North Carolina, Christo in Lubbock, Nancy in North Carolina, Fred in Miami Beach, Bella in Florida, John in Arizona. Where'd it go? Chaim says a good vach mazel tov. Lucy in Minnesota. Miriam in Colorado. Tom says Shavua Tov. Edson Ignacio from Florida. Yehudit was in Florence. Paula in Chicago. Over there on the YouTube side, Aoife in Florida. Lynn in North Texas. Gigi in British Columbia. Marjorie in Georgia. It's great to have you all with us as we celebrate completing another tractate. Just looking ahead a little bit, our next tractate, Tanis, fascinating. On the surface, doesn't sound so fascinating. It's the Mishnas and Gemaras on the subject of public fasts, but in ancient times, declaring a public fast because of negative circumstances like a drought or persecution, a plague, things like that. What would lead to it? When would it happen? How would it happen? Leads into a bunch of fascinating digressions. It's going to be a really good tractate, in fact. And then the one after that will be Tractate Megillah, the laws of Purim, and some really fascinating teachings in there. Let's get into it tonight. We're actually picking it up near the bottom of the B side of page 34, where we left off yesterday. Recall that we're in chapter 4 discussing the 10th Mishnah, the 10th and final Mishnah of Tractate Rosh Hashana. And we've been discussing the shofar blower and the prayer leader and their relationship to the rest of the congregation. When is it that by listening to them, we fulfill our own obligations on Rosh Hashana? Yesterday, we saw that listening to the shofar on Rosh Hashana, that's a Torah obligation. Reciting the additional blessings that are added into the Musaf Amida, the additional standing prayer that we recite on Rosh Hashana, is a rabbinic obligation. We're totally obligated in both things, but if one must choose, then he should go to a place where he can hear the shofar being blown on Rosh Hashana. Okay, the Mishnah states, just as the prayer leader is obligated in the prayers of Rosh Hashana, so too every individual is obligated in these prayers. Now, the fact that we can listen to a prayer leader and be yotze, have fulfilled our own obligations, will only work if he is obligated, right? The prayer leader must be obligated in order for us to fulfill our obligations by listening. Now, that's certainly true with the shofar. Is that true in every case with the prayer leader? Not so clear. So the Mishna states that just as the prayer leader is obligated in the prayers of Rosh Hashana, the prayers specific to Rosh Hashana, so too every individual is obligated in these prayers. Rabban Gamliel says the prayer leader fulfills the obligation on behalf of the many. Since the Mishnah stated an anonymous opinion, that would seem to be the majority of the sages. Rabban Gamliel then listed afterwards with a differing opinion would seem to be the minority opinion, the one that was overruled. It is taught in a baraisa that the rabbis said to Rabban Gamliel, according to your statement, why does the congregation recite the silent Amida beforehand? Right, the custom in synagogues is that when we get to the standing prayer, first the congregation recites it silently, and then the prayer leader repeats it out loud, and we answer Amen to all of the blessings that he recites, with the exception of the part where we say thank you to God. There's a second liturgy of saying thanks, because we have to do that on our own. You cannot deputize somebody else to say thank you for you, as we've discussed before. But now, since Rabban Gamliel says, well, in terms of the additional prayers of Rosh Hashanah, the prayer leader, by reciting them aloud, and we say Amen, he's done our job for us, and so we don't have to do it. So they say to him, well, then why does the congregation recite the silent Amida first? Answers Rabban Gamliel. He said to them, in order that the prayer leader should have time to prepare and arrange his prayer. Wait a minute. That's the reason? I mean, we could all have a moment of silence, period. If that's what it is, why are we reciting the silent Amida if it's only to provide a pause in the service so that the prayer leader can get himself together? Rabban Gamliel said to the rabbis, according to your statement that the prayer leader does not fulfill the obligation on behalf of the many, why does the prayer leader descend before the ark and recite the Amida prayer? In other words, why does he do the cantor's repetition of the Amida? If he doesn't fulfill our obligation for us, then the fact that we all said the silent Amida means that prayer is over. It's done. We've all done it. What do we need the cantor to then repeat it out loud in front of the room? And Rabban Gamliel said to them, wait a second, he said that. They said to him, he does so to fulfill the obligation of one who is not an expert in prayer. Now, that sounds very reasonable. Not everybody can pray with great fluency. Some people can't even read the Hebrew at all. Now, at least, there's going to be a repetition where it's going to be said absolutely properly, and everyone who listens closely and attentively and says Amen can thereby fulfill his obligation. That makes sense, right? So Rabban Gamliel said to them, just as he can fulfill the obligation of one who is not an expert in prayer, so too he can fulfill the obligation of the experts, the ones who are expert in prayer. It's like a pretty good gotcha from Rabban Gamliel. With regard to this baraisa, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana said that Rabbi Yochanan said, ultimately, the rabbis concede to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel. But Rav said, it is still a dispute that remains unresolved. The Gemara relates that Rabbi Chia, the son of Rabbi Bar Nachmani, heard this, and he went and stated this halacha, this law, before Rav Dimi Bar Chinana. And he said to him that this is what Rav said. It is still a dispute. Rav Dimi Bar Chinana said to him, this is what Rabbi Bar Chana also said. When Rabbi Yochanan said this law, this halacha, that the rabbis concede to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel, Reish Lakish, the great sage Reish Lakish, Shimon ben Lakish, disagreed with him and said it is still a dispute. So we're not sure, was it a dispute and it was left as a dispute between the rabbis and Rabban Gamliel, or did the rabbis concede to Rabban Gamliel that the prayer leader fulfills the obligation of the many? This question is left open. And the Gemara asks, and did Rabbi Yochanan actually say this? Didn't Rabbi Chana from the city of Tzipori say that Rabbi Yochanan said the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel? He doesn't say that it's still a dispute. They concede to Rabbi Gamliel. Oh, wait a minute. Did they concede to Rabban Gamliel, or was the law just ruled in accordance with Rabban Gamliel over the objection of the other rabbis? Now, from the fact that he said The halacha, meaning that the law was ruled in accordance with Rabban Gamliel, one can conclude by inference that the rabbis still disagree. They did not concede to Rabban Gamliel. The very fact that he issued a ruling in favor of Rabban Gamliel shows that Rabbi Yochanan maintains that the sages do not accept this opinion. Okay. And the Gemara answers, when Rabbi Abba returned from his travels at sea, he explained the matter as follows. The sages concede to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel with regard to the blessings of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, that in these cases, the prayer leader fulfills the obligation on behalf of the many. And Rabbi Yochanan's statement that the law is in accordance with Rabban Gamliel, which by inference indicates that the sages of the Mishnah still disagree, is referring to the blessings of the entire year. So it would seem that we defer to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel, and the law is established according to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel, and maybe even all the sages agree with Rabban Gamliel with respect to the prayers, the many, many, many additional prayers that are added to the liturgy on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur. However, with regard to Shabbos and the daily prayers, is it enough to listen to the prayer leader and say Amen, or do you have to say the prayers yourself? The Gemara raises a difficulty. Is that so? That it's only with respect to Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashana that they defer to Rabban Gamliel, but not with the rest of the year? Is that so? Didn't Rabbi Chana from the city of Tzipori say that Rabbi Yochanan said, the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rabban Gamliel with regard to the blessings of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur? Apparently, he holds that the Tanaim, the sages of the Mishnah, remain in dispute even with regard to these blessings. The law might be that the prayer leader exempts the congregation, but the sages never conceded to Rabban Gamliel that this was so. Rather, Rabbi Yochanan's statements must be attributed to different sages, a whole new approach. As Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak said, who concedes to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel? Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir. And with regard to Rabbi Yochanan's ruling that the law is in accordance with Rabban Gamliel, which by inference indicates that the Tanaim still disagree, this is referring to the rabbis who disagree with Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir conceded to Rabban Gamliel, disagreed but finally conceded. But the rest of the sages did not concede to Rabban Gamliel. They were overruled by later authorities who said the law is with Rabban Gamliel, but they never agreed. And the Gemara explains, as it is taught in a Baraisa, with regard to the blessings of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, the prayer leader fulfills the obligation on behalf of the many. And this is the statement of Rabbi Meir. And the rabbis say, just as the prayer leader is obligated in these prayers, so too every individual is obligated to recite them on his own. And clearly, Rabbi Meir agrees with Rabban Gamliel with regard to the blessings of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, while the rabbis dispute this ruling. And the Gemara asks, what is different about these blessings of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur that Rabbi Meir concedes to the opinion of Rabban Gamliel only with regard to them, but not about the blessings recited the rest of the year? If we say that it is due to the many verses that are included in these blessings, well, this is difficult. As a rationale for this legal ruling, this is difficult. Didn't Rav Hananel say that Rav said, once one has recited the line of the prayer, and in your Torah it is written, saying, once you said those words, and in your Torah it is written, saying, and then the blessings follow, right, that we recite on Rosh Hashanah, all these verses of remembrance and shofarot and kingship always follow, and in your Torah it is written, saying, so like we're reminding God, right, that in your Torah it is written, and that you are the king, and therefore you're our king, and you said to sound the shofar, and you said it in all these different places, and it will be a remembrance, and we cite all these verses, but we always introduce those 10 verses for each subject by saying, and in your Torah it is written, saying. And once you say those words, and in your Torah it is written, saying, it is no longer necessary to recite the verses themselves. This is offered as a proof that it's not so difficult. Right? You could say, well, the prayer leader exempts the congregation because it's so difficult to say all these many verses that are added. But for some reason, as soon as you've said, in your Torah it is written, saying, you don't even have to recite the rest of the verses. Now you fulfilled your obligation. It is no longer necessary to recite the verses themselves. Rather, it is because there are many blessings, and as the blessings are long, not everyone is capable of learning them by heart. Now, the Gemara discusses the matter itself. Rav Hananel said, Rav said, once one has recited the line of the prayer, and in your Torah it is written, saying, then it is no longer necessary to recite the verses themselves. And the Gemara clarifies the scope of this ruling. Some understood from this that it applies only to an individual. However, with regard to a congregation, no, this is not the case. All the blessings on Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur must be recited. Nevertheless, it is stated that Rabbi Yehoshua ben Levi said, both with regard to an individual and a congregation, once one has recited, and in your Torah it is written, saying, it is no longer necessary to recite the verses. This is a crazy ruling. I can tell you right now, no congregation on earth stops after saying, and in your Torah it is written. Rabbi Elazar said, a person should always arrange his prayer. Wait, before we go to this new subject, let's read some halachas on this. On this law, once one has recited it, in your Torah it is written. Although one must recite the 10 verses of kingship, remembrance, and shofarot ab initio, if one did not begin to recite the verses at all and said only, and in your Torah it is written, saying, he has fulfilled his obligation, in accordance with the opinion of Rav Hananel. Amazing. With regard to the verses of the festival offerings, the Sephardic custom is not to recite them, whereas the Ashkenazic custom is to recite them. Okay. Okay. And in the end, the law is, right, that one fulfills his obligation even if he is unable to recite all the prayers himself individually. If he listens to the prayer leader and he pays attention, then he has fulfilled his obligation. But you have to listen to the prayer leader say all those verses to really fulfill your obligation. On the other hand, it says, well, all you really have to do is say the beginning, but that's just not done. We'll come back to that in a moment. Rabbi Elazar said, a person should always arrange his prayer in his mind and only then pray. Rabbi Abba said, Rabbi Elazar's statement is reasonable with regard to the blessings of Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, and in the case of prayers that are recited only intermittently. However, with regard to the blessings recited all year, no, this practice is not necessary. In other words, the prayers that you say every day, you could just launch into pray. When it's the time to pray, you could just say it. You don't have to kind of sit and focus and get ready to pray. Really what they're saying there is not about the preparation to pray in terms of like spiritual preparation. What they're saying is when you're praying unfamiliar prayers, make sure you know what you're going to pray, like what words you are going to pray. Look over the prayers before you pray them. And the Gemara asks, is that so? Didn't Rav Yehuda first arrange his prayer in his mind and only then pray, even on an ordinary day? And the Gemara answers, Rav Yehuda was different, since he would pray only once in 30 days. What? The great Rav Yehuda only prayed once every 30 days? That can't be. How is that possible? So good. During the rest of the month, he would not engage in prayer as he was busy with Torah study every waking hour. Therefore, for him, even regular weekday prayers were like prayers recited intermittently. And so since he only actually did a whole prayer service every 30 days, he prepared himself to make sure he knew what he was going to pray. And Rav Acha bar Avira said that Rabbi Shimon Chasida said, Rabban Gamliel would allow the prayer leader not only to exempt the people in the room from listening to him, they have fulfilled their obligation to pray on Rosh Hashana, but even the people who were in the fields and away from the synagogue. The Gemara challenges. This statement implies that the prayer leader exempts even the people in the fields And needless to say, he exempts those that are here in the city, but did not attend the prayer service in the synagogue? What? You're exempt, you fulfill your obligation even if you don't go to shul? That can't be. And the Gemara questions this conclusion. On the contrary, the opposite is more reasonable. Those in the fields did not come to the synagogue due to circumstances beyond their control, and therefore they should be allowed to fulfill their obligation through the prayer leader leading the prayers in synagogue. By contrast, those who live in the city were not prevented from coming to the synagogue due to circumstances beyond their control. Consequently, they should not fulfill their obligation through the prayer leader. As Abba, the son of Rabbi Yamin bar Chiya, taught in a baraisa, those people standing in the synagogue behind the priests during the priestly blessing, so on a festival, during the Musaf Amida, during the additional standing prayer, if there are Kohanim in the room, if there are descendants of Aaron, right, a Kohen, all the Kohens go up to the front of the room. They put their prayer shawl over their heads. Everyone in the congregation puts their prayer shawls over their heads so you don't look in the eyes of the Kohen. And then the Kohanim bless the room. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord countenance you and be gracious to you. May the Lord favor you and grant you shalom, peace. In Israel, they do that every day, but outside Israel, only on festivals. When the Kohens are in the front of the room blessing the people, you cannot stand behind them. You need to be standing in front of them in order to receive the blessing that they are giving. So as Abba, the son of Rabbi Binyamin bar Chiya, taught in a baraisa, those people standing in the synagogue behind the priests during the priestly blessing, who are not positioned in front of them, face to face, are not included in the blessing. They are expected to make the minimal effort to stand in front of the priests. However, those in the fields are included in the priestly blessing. Right? The ones in the room are only included if they make sure to be standing facing the priest when they're giving the blessing. But the people who, due to circumstances beyond their control, could not come to synagogue that day are included in the priestly blessing. Rather, Rabban Gamliel's statement should be understood differently. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, to the Jewish community in Bavel, in Babylonia, he reported that Rabbi Yaakov bar Idi said, that Rabbi Shimon bar Chasida said, Rabban Gamliel allowed the prayer leader to exempt only the people in the fields. And what is the reason for this? Because the people in the fields are unable to come to the synagogue due to work circumstances beyond their control and do not have time to prepare their prayers. However, Rabban Gamliel did not exempt those in the city who are able to go to synagogue and didn't come to synagogue, as they are able to prepare their prayers and pray for themselves. Hadran. We finished tractate Rosh Hashana. With that, I'm about to read the Hadran. I just wanted to say, what is the law on this? Rabban Gamliel allowed the prayer leader to exempt only the people in the fields. On the new moon, if one forgot to recite the addition, whose omission necessitates the repetition of the prayer, i.e. the paragraph in the additional prayer that we recite at Rosh Chodesh, the beginning of each month, where we say, may there rise and come and be heard before you a prayer so that we receive a livelihood and good health and long life. We ask all these blessings at the beginning of each month. If you forget to say that during your Amida, you have to repeat the whole Amida. And here it says, right? So if you forget to say that, he should focus on the recitation of the prayer leader throughout the entire prayer as though he himself were praying. And the one who forgot has the same legal status as of one who is subject to the circumstances beyond his control, as he did not mean to forget. And therefore the prayer leader exempts him. However, it is preferable to repeat the prayer oneself, as not everyone can focus his intent for the entire repetition of the prayer leader. And so there we see, don't think that just because you're in a building when the prayer leader is praying and you heard it kind of, while you were chatting with your friend, that you have fulfilled your obligation. In order to fulfill your obligation by listening to the prayer leader recite the prayer, you need to focus on what he's saying every word. Right? That's a tough concentration act. Better say your silent Amida and mean it before we come to that. Okay, that concludes Tractate Rosh Hashana. And so we read at the end, like we do at the end of every tractate, we shall return to you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and your glory is upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. We say that paragraph 3 times. We shall return to you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and your glory is upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. Is it sinking in? What we learn together, that's one of the things that you can take with you when you leave this world. You can't take your gold, not your silver, not your house, but you can take your learning. We shall return to you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and your glory is upon us. Our thoughts are upon you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and your thoughts are upon us. We will not be forgotten from you, Tractate Rosh Hashana, and you will not be forgotten from us, neither in this world nor in the world to come. May it be your will, Lord our God and God of our ancestors, that your Torah will be our avocation in this world and will accompany us to the world to come. And then the sons of Rav Papa, Chanina bar Papa, Rameh bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Achai bar Papa, Abba Mari bar Papa, Rafram bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Surcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Daru bar Papa, an amazing family that produced 10 sons who were sages. Please, Lord our God, make the words of your Torah sweet in our mouths and in the mouths of your people, the house of Israel, so that we, our descendants and their descendants, and the descendants of your people, the house of Israel, may all know your name and study your Torah for its own sake. Your commandments make me wiser than my enemies, for they are ever with me. Let my heart be undivided in your statutes, in order that I may not be put to shame. I will never forget your precepts, for you, with them, you have quickened me. Blessed are you, O Lord. Teach me your statutes. Amen, amen, amen. Selah, forever. We give thanks before you, Lord our God and God of our ancestors, that you have placed our lot among those who sit in the study hall, and that you have not given us our portion among those who sit idly on street corners. We rise early and they rise early. We rise early to pursue matters of Torah, and they rise early to pursue frivolous matters. We toil and they toil. We toil and receive a reward, and they toil and do not receive a reward. We run and they run. We run to the life of the world to come, and they run to the pit of destruction, as it is stated. But you, God, will bring them down into the pit of destruction. Men of blood and deceit shall not live out half their days. But as for me, I will trust in you. May it be your will, Lord my God, just as you have assisted me in completing Tractate Rosh Hashana, so assist me to begin other tractates and books and conclude them, to learn and to teach, to observe and to perform, and to fulfill all the teachings of your Torah with love. And may the merit of all the Tanaim and the Moraim and Torah scholars stand for me and my descendants, so that the Torah will not move from my mouth and from the mouths of my descendants and the descendants of my descendants forever. And may the verse, when you walk, it shall lead you. When you lie down, it shall watch over you. When you awaken, it shall talk with you, be fulfilled in me. For in the Torah your days shall be multiplied, and the years of your life shall be increased. Length of days is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. May the Lord give strength to his people. The Lord will bless his people with peace. And we say, Amen. Okay. Nina should be here momentarily, I think. And we'll answer some questions. But right away, since we just finished a tractate, we begin tractate. So the difference between Ashkenaz pronunciation and sort of modern Hebrew pronunciation or Sephardic pronunciation. This is tractate Ta'anit, Sephardic, or Tainus, Ashkenaz. So I'll probably be saying Tainus, since that's what we say here in our community. So the beginning of tractate Tainus, Mishna number 1, chapter 1, from when, i.e., from which date, does one begin to mention the might of the rains by inserting the phrase, Mashiva Ruach Umarida Geshem, he makes the wind blow and rain fall. When do we add that to the second blessing of the Amida? Rabbi Eliezer says the phrase is inserted from the first festival day of the festival of Sukkot, and Rabbi Yehoshua says from the last festival day of the festival of Sukkot, which is Shmini Atzeres. Why are we starting a tractate about declaring public fast days with a discussion of when do we change the prayer to include the lines about the wind and the rain? Tune in tomorrow. Hello. Questions. Let me check on questions, but you can come in and sit down. Okay. Quick questions before we have our L'chaim. Christo Cheney, I recently read in my siddur, in my prayer book, a quote from Shulchan Aruch, the great law book, Shulchan Aruch Or Chaim. Before a few prayers spoken with proper intention, better a few prayers spoken with proper intention than many words prayed without intention. Really love that. I always try to have the proper attitude when davening, still working on that.
Just so.
Just so. Couldn't have said it any better. So often. But you know, it also happens that we want to fulfill our obligation, and some days it's impossible. We're in a rush. I mean, we're just not going to be able to summon that correct intention. Mm-hmm. Should we not pray at all? No, better to pray. Better to pray. What Christo's saying is sometimes maybe we can't do all the prayers in a prayer service, but at least for some of them, we can really focus and make sure we understand what we're saying and beseech God with great kavanah, great intention, just so. Lucy, when texts were not so available, people needed to know them by heart, and not everybody could study and memorize them, 100%. Yeah. So they needed to exempt people and let the prayer leader represent them. It's not like every synagogue had a stack of prayer books at the front of the room. It's very rare that somebody had a text they could read along with in ancient times. So if everybody was memorizing the prayers, like that's beyond the ability of most people. So it had to be that you could listen to the prayer leader and be exempted. And I like, says Lucy, that the sages thought about and respected the different levels of education and the various circumstances of people's lives. Mm-hmm. Just so you shall live by these precepts, not toil in them to the point that you're suffering and dying from them. Sharon, I am unsure of something. I have my Koren, Rosh Hashana Machzor, so her prayer book of Rosh Hashana, published by Koren. And there is, at the start of each section of the Musaf, the additional prayer, as it is written in your Torah, kakatu b'torasecha, and then there are 7, and it said, v'ne'emar phrases. I thought I heard you say that there should be 10 such verses. Did I hear this incorrectly? Really good question. I'm not sure why. They said there should be 10 of each, but we also saw there should be 10 of each, but the minimum was 7. And some said only 3, but I think they agreed in the end it was 7. So maybe the Koren subscribes to that opinion, but I'm not sure. I feel like this liturgy has been really arranged. Good for you. You went in and counted. I just, I can't comment. I don't know. But that's what we saw, that the minimum was 7. I thought it was 10. Maybe it's different nusach that has that. I'm not sure. Okay. It is time to make a celebration. Yay. How are you, Nina?
Very good, thank God. I have an idea. Speaking of celebrations, so wouldn't it be amazing when this awful pandemic is in the past, and God willing, may it be soon, if we all get together for an AT Daily Shabbaton? Like if we just have like a big house or some kind of center somewhere, and we can meet everybody in person. How amazing would that be? So if that sounds like something you'd want to do, say so in the comments. And hopefully we'll be able to do it soon, maybe next year, or I don't know when, but something to kind of look towards.
I love that idea. I'm in.
Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. Sal's in.
Yeah, maybe somewhere in the middle of the country. I mean, it would involve flying for most of us. It's that kind of a thing. And maybe not everybody could make it, but maybe enough could make it and we could Zoom in the rest. That'd be amazing. That'd be great. Yeah. Not on Shabbos, we couldn't Zoom, but the rest. Okay. Let's make a l'chaim. We're doing something a little special, right? We use the good booze when we're making a l'chaim for a SIYUM. This was a gift from my good friend David Suissa, Johnny Walker Platinum. Okay. So first we'll make a bracha.
Have your own little beverage and little snack.
First we'll make the bracha, and then we'll make the l'chaim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shah kol nehi b'divaro.
Amen.
Amen. L'chaim. L'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim. May we be blessed to learn together and make it all the way through Shas another 5 years.
Amen.
And because it's a celebration, we want to make another bracha.
So is that a thing? Like for it to be a celebration, you need to actually have a mazonos, like a grain product?
I think so.
Oh,
That's how I've always seen it done.
okay.
Yeah. So what we have here is a couple of crackers made with wheat, but it's not bread. So we'll make a different blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei mizonos.
Amen.
This is why you should never eat on camera.
Pesto, tasty pesto dip. For Shabbos, I love to have lots of dips on the table. So we've got pesto dip and chipotle dip and eggplant dip and onion dip and hummus and tahina, and I love dips like as kind of the first course.
All right, people are liking your idea, Nina.
Yay! I'm so excited.
A lot of people.
This is going to be amazing.
Oh yeah. Amen on the blessings. Paula says you look beautiful tonight, Nina.
Oh, thank you, Paula.
Pauline loves your hat. And then regarding the Shabbaton, Sam Richardson says yes. Renee says yes. Emily says I love that. Sharon says I love that idea. Yehudit is in. Virginia is in. Chaim is in with his wife.
Because like you guys are a family with us now. We feel like you're definitely our community. And I think it would be just so awesome. So the way a Shabbaton usually works is like we kind of get together maybe like Friday early in the day, and go through Shabbos, and then it usually ends Sunday morning.
Yep. I mean, we would even bring in a musical guest
Yes,
for sure.
maybe
I think Moshe Storch would make sense.
Yeah.
And he'd also lead us in the davening.
We'd have amazing kosher food, and usually it's like it's someplace where there's an outdoor aspect, so people can go on hikes and walks, and
Yeah.
So we'll start thinking about that.
And then I was saying, and then I would do some teaching, Nina would do some teaching, and then we could bring in some other experts to do
people,
some
yeah.
teaching. And I was saying, well, who should we bring in? And then, of course, it immediately occurred to me, I think Bill would be a teacher. I think Sharon would be a teacher.
Exactly.
We've got our teachers right here in our community.
That's it. Oh my gosh, that would be so cool. Absolutely.
Now, with respect to what people are drinking, Bill is drinking Lindemann's Framboise. Okay, I don't know what that is, but it sounds like a really tasty soda.
Lindemann's, I think, makes
like a seltzer, right?
No, like a really good tonic, like a gourmet tonic water.
Like a tonic. Oh, yeah, that you'd have with gin. I
Right.
getcha.
Yeah.
And what else did I see? Somebody had a redemption bourbon.
Oh, I've heard of that. I love bourbon. I'm a bourbon girl myself, so.
Sharon is having Knob Creek smoked maple.
Ooh, that
Yummy.
sounds really good.
Very good. Okay, lots of people like the idea. Don't forget the Corona. You mean the beer? You mean the beer, right? The Corona we don't have to think about.
That's what I'm saying. We wanted, please, God, let's just be in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, exactly. And Sam is having the Woodford Reserve. That's one of my favorites for sure. Daniel says it's Bill says it's a raspberry beer. That does sound good.
I don't like beer, but I like raspberries.
Yes. Krista says, when a date is set up, please let us know so I can plan the trip. I mean, this thing is acquiring momentum already.
2022, like.
Yeah, exactly. And by then, things can calm down. Maybe the plague will be in our rearview mirror.
Yeah, like spring, summer 22.
Yeah.
I like it.
I really love this idea. And I'm thinking middle of the country. I think Bill said it should be near a major airport. Yeah, absolutely. Don't have to drive too far from the airport. But in a nice facility. I've heard that there's nice places.
Well, people want to come out to California, like there's Brandeis Bardeen. There's all kinds of great facilities.
People don't mind flying to California. We have an amazing place where we could do this.
We have a lot of different options, but wherever it is, we'll make what makes the most sense for the most people.
Okay, we'll figure something out.
Yeah,
we will figure
God
something
willing,
out.
we're going to make this happen. It's going to be awesome. It's going to lead to a whole new stage in the life of this community.
That would be amazing. Any announcements? Tomorrow, class will be at the regular time, with God's help, 6 p.m. Pacific. I don't think there's going to be a problem.
We're going to a wedding.
But we're going to a wedding that has a chuppah at 4 o'clock. I've already prepared tomorrow's daf, so I could get home and go right on the air.
It's unusual. It's a Hasidic wedding. We've been to Hasidic weddings before, but this one, so the invitation came, and so the chuppah, like the actual wedding ceremony, is at 4, but then the party is kind of at 8. So I think you leave and come back.
Right.
I don't know. So maybe in between.
Or maybe not. So there's a small chance that there won't be class tomorrow, in which case I'll post something on the Facebook page. But hopefully I'll be able to just get home, even if it's in the middle. If it's going to be like a 6-hour wedding thing, it's right in the neighborhood. Yeah. So I'll run home, teach the class, and run back to the wedding if that's going to be possible. But we'll see. So, and otherwise, Monday, everything is back to normal. However, later in the week, Thursday there will be class, and then Friday and Saturday there won't be because our minyan is having a Shabbaton for all the families, so we're going to be out of town and unable to get on the air Friday and Saturday. And then hopefully by that Sunday it'll be able to be a triple dot, but that's a week from today.
Okay.
All right, that's it. That's what we've got today. Let me see, are there any other comments? Very good. There's a hashtag trending double daf day. We can do a double daf day if needed. It is really, it warms our hearts, that we teach this every day. And we're really getting to know you through the comments. It'll be so good if we can do it in person, but it's just a number of names that we see every day. We're just used to you. You're used to us, and we can't wait to meet you in person. And we know that there's a bunch of people that don't necessarily comment, but are here every day, and we hear from them now and then.
To the lurkers, you're invited to.
Yes, everybody invited. It'd be wonderful to all be together.
Lurkers and people that are tuning in after the show is live, which is a lot of people.
Exactly. There's a bunch of people who can't watch live. It doesn't fit into their schedule, but we hear from them. They watch it the next day, right? Like, who was it in Italy?
The man in Italy, Francisco, I think, yeah.
Franco, right?
Franco.
Franco in Italy.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like that. And Helena in Finland, it doesn't always work in the middle of the night. But it really is an AT community. From the first time that we created this on Facebook, it never said individual. Accidental Talmudist has never been a person. It's been a community. And that's really borne fruit. Okay. Anything else?
I think that's it.
My friends, you should be blessed with such a good week. A week of peace, a week of health, a week of learning, a week of coming closer to your loved ones and them coming closer to you. And for all of us, a week of coming closer to God and fulfilling the mission that God sent us into this world to do.
Amen.
Have a good night.